On July 18th, 1995, Soufriere Hills, a dormant volcano, erupted for the first time in 600 years. It began to belch thousands of metric tons of toxic chemicals and ash onto the small island of Montserrat. If you do not know where Montserrat is, you could hardly be faulted. It is a beautiful and luxurious sandy speck in the Caribbean Sea, controlled by the British government, or at least it used to be beautiful. Over the following 4 days, the island would change forever. On July 19th, 1995, my unit was dispatched as part of an emergency rescue mission conducted by the British Royal Navy to remove civilians from harm's way. We were a small US military rescue team, which remains classified for various reasons to this day. I shall not bore you with the details of bureaucratic red tape. For this story, you may call me Mr. Blue. We were highly efficient in our ability to conduct business in unorthodox circumstances. The Royal Navy requested our expertise, and we quickly mobilized. In preparation for our deployment, we had a briefing at Roosevelt Roads Naval Station in Ciba, located on the far eastern coast of Puerto Rico. We were ideally placed to get to Montserrat quickly. "All right, settle down, Mr. Green, our executive officer said. He activated a screen which showed a topographical view of the island, the volcano, and our target location for our deployment for search and rescue. Mr. Green rubbed his short, cropped salt and pepper hair and gently adjusted a setting on the computer to make things easier to see. "Going on another bug hunt, Commander. We haven't been to Central America in a while," Mr. Brown said. Mr. Brown was my squad leader and chief petty officer. He was a seasoned veteran of our unit and liked to joke around at horribly inopportune times. His uniform was tailored obscenely tight at the arms, which caused his biceps to flex to the point that I thought these stitches would pop. "Afraid not, Chief. You will be going into a hot zone. Soufriere Hills is in imminent danger of eruption. Satellite images show a massive heat signature on the island, and roughly 6,000 people are still trapped in the capital of Montserrat, Plymouth. We are to assist the Royal Navy in securing as many civilians as we can for full evacuation." He tapped against the screen with a long pointer. He indicated the small city on the southern side of the island, right by the coast. I stared blankly. "A rescue mission? What's the catch? We never do things this simple." "Oh, no catch, Mr. Blue. The Brits have asked for assistance, and we are here to give it, like good neighbors. Turn to page 3 in your mission brief," Mr. Green said. "Montserrat Springs Hotel is being used as a staging area for civilians to await pickup. That is where we will begin operations." As I said in the briefing, we were told the volcano had begun to discharge tephra, a burning hot cloud of fire, onto Plymouth. The city was located just on the coast of Montserrat and nestled right against the volcano itself, and luxurious resorts and bungalows dotted the beaches. The tephra had badly damaged the structures which surrounded Soufriere Hills. Information was limited, but most pleasure craft had already evacuated the island itself, and who was ever left had no way out. "There is one more thing," Mr. Green said. "HMS Broadsword detected an anomalous sound coming from the island. Her sonar operator said it sounds like massive rock collisions. It could be the volcanic activity is destabilizing the island itself. Mr. Green played the sound for us. It caused all small chatter in the room to go silent. It was a soft, baleful sound. It rumbled deep and caused the hairs on my arms to stand up. It was almost like rocks being ground together. "Underwater earthquake," Mr. Red said. "Oh, heck yes." It was Mr. Brown. "What are you so excited about? You want to be in a volcano and an earthquake?" I asked. "You never seen an island sink? This will be my third." Mr. Silver, our chief petty officer and tech guru, stared wistfully at the screen. "Wonder if I can get a nice picture out of that." We left from port that morning and were near Montserrat by late afternoon. The massive thunderhead produced by the intense heat and ash blotted out the sun as we made our approach. We could see the ash cloud from 40 miles away, and it was carried out to sea by the wind. It casted an ominous image, and I couldn't help but think back to a previous mission to Mount St. Helens. Bolts of orange heat lightning streaked through the night as Sioux Freer Hills lit up the night sky with her tremendous power. All 12 men in the unit stood on the deck of the USS Port Royal, a massive Ticonderoga-class cruiser that we were more than happy to hitch a ride on. The colossal 560-foot vessel was much better than what we were used to. We often found ourselves crammed onto tiny spaces or hidden onto junks to make entry. We made landfall near her little bay and quickly unpacked our kits. We offloaded 4 Humvees but found them almost entirely useless. The streets were badly damaged from tremors, and transit by vehicle was impossible at this point. Thick layers of ash coated the ground and formed massive gray snowdrifts against buildings. Smoke covered most of the streets of the idyllic Caribbean city, though it felt more like a small town than a capital. The intense heat lightning provided out only natural illumination. The power had failed on the entry island 2 days earlier. We would be on foot in rough urban terrain. A small tremor, 4.5 on the Richter scale, rattled the remnants of windows and caused a small home on a hill to collapse. The Humvees rolled at a painfully slow 5 miles per hour, and we found several panicked civilians in a townhome near the edge of the city. Lava had begun to flow steadily from the volcano and began to ignite wooden structures ablaze. It threatened to cut the city in half, which would leave us with a compromised search area. We split up and took 2 Humvees each. A deep rumble could be heard as Sioux Freer Hills released a massive plume of ash and soot, along with ribbon bombs of lava. Mr. Silver, Mr. Gray, Mr. Black, and I went off in our Humvee closest to the lava flow to ensure that no one was trapped. Mr. Silver took multiple photos from the window. Hey, stop. Mr. Silver nudged me with his hand. Not exactly the safest place to stop, I told him. Just a minute, I saw something. We pulled over and I made sure that I kept a safe distance from the small river of lava as it flowed toward the city square. We walked a short distance to the base of the volcano, and Mr. Silver knelt next to a small shrine embedded into the stone. 5 bodies littered the ground around it. They were all dead, badly burnt and crushed by stone. He pulled out a small camera, and it clicked repeatedly as he moved slightly and adjusted his focus. What is that thing? Mr. Gray pointed a finger at a small stone figure at the center of the shrine. It appeared to be carved from obsidian. It vaguely resembled a gorilla, with disproportionately large arms and a short, flat face. 2 blunt nubs of horns atop the head. The face was barely noticeable, worn away from time. It appears to be some kind of idol or obsession. It's super old, Mr. Silver said as he replaced his camera. Sharoof? Wonder what Sharoof is. He pointed to a small etched plaque at the base of the shrine. It appeared much newer. Spanish maybe, I don't speak Spanish, Mr. Green said. Mr. Silver reached out and touched the smooth, textured statue. The ground trembled and I felt a sudden sense of unease. He grabbed it by a leg and lifted it. It immediately fell to the ground. My God, this thing weighs a ton. Mr. Silver grabbed hold with both hands and, with great trouble, hoisted it back onto its pedestal. You got your pictures, come on, let's go, I told the group. We got back in our Humvees and rolled on. We regrouped back at City Hall 2 hours later. The roof had caved in under the weight of the ash and dust wafted in from every direction. Mr. Black led 42 civilians towards a transport ship at Little Bay, while we checked a map with a flashlight and marked off sections that we had already searched. What's that? Near the center of town. It's not cleared, I said. The Plymouth Catholic Church. Christ, we didn't go to the church. The lava flow had cut us off. A tremor had caused the building to groan and a massive crack formed in the floor. We have to go. This island isn't going to hold together, and I don't like to see islands sink while I'm still on them, Mr. Brown remarked. A massive rumble shook the structure, and I could hear the volcano rumble as it crept even closer to full eruption. Mr. Silver and I will go on foot. We can hike in and check it quickly, and then be back to evac, I told the group. Mr. Green gave me a stern look. 45 minutes, not a moment sooner. You will need to suit up. The air quality is just a step below toxic at this point. We donned hazmat attire and checked the airflow. I stepped out of the building into the fire. Pumice rained down on the streets as clouds of puminite burned through my environmental suit. I found the church already surrounded by banks of ash. The sky was black, and the sun was barely a pinprick of light overhead. I could barely see as I made my way into the church. I stumbled into a woman as she roamed alone in a street. She kicked piles of ash and grabbed at my suit. She told me that I needed to run in the opposite direction and took off. I tried to stop her, to tell her where to go, but I could no longer see her. The deep rumble under my feet grew, and I knew I was almost out of time. A step forward, and the steeple of a half-scorched church stood stoically in the dim light before me. I pushed open the door and entered. I stood inside the exquisite Catholic architecture and wiped soot from my mask. Dust rained from the ceiling, while the entire church was slowly shaken to its bones. I heard a small sound, barely audible. I began to walk as best as I could, down the pews until I found a small band of civilians, 5 in all, a family with 3 children. We have to go now, it isn't safe here, I shouted over the ever-growing rumble. A crack formed in the floor near the altar. The entire building groaned, and I thought that it might cave in on us if we stayed just a moment longer. I unhooked a series of long, thick yellow ropes and looped them around their waists, one at a time. I connected them with D-rings and gave each a tug. Stay close so we do not separate. I will guide you to the boats. Sharuf, the man said to me. It was almost a whisper and I barely understood it. Please, we gotta leave. Follow me. There was a strange sense of silence for a moment, and then I felt, rather than heard, a soft, low purr like a cat. It grew louder against my eardrums. I grew tense as I saw fear in the eyes of the civilians. Not good, I thought. A stream of lava burst from the floor in front of me and spurted to the ceiling, which was immediately set ablaze. Wooden beams bent and fell onto the pews. I scooped up the nearest child and began to move. I felt a hand on the rope pull slightly as they struggled to move at my pace. I saw the man carry his youngest daughter, while his wife picked up their toddler son and followed, the yellow robe dangling from their waists. What I saw next shocked me for a moment. The wooden boards on the floor, burning brightly with orange flames, flexed, bulged, bent, and finally snapped as something pushed out from underneath the structure. A geyser of lava erupted and blocked out of my view. Something was inside that lava flow. We ran out of the church and I realized it had begun to rain. Not good, I thought to myself. Rain and volcanic ash made lahar, a dangerous combination which would bury everything around it. It moved as fast as an avalanche, but was basically boiling mud. The ground trembled beneath us as we made our way down the street as the road crumbled beneath us. I glanced up in the direction of Soufriere Hills. I could see the glow of the top of the volcano and the thick lava flows as it poured down the sides. Even though the dense ash clouds shrouded most of the area in darkness, a massive mudslide began to tumble, and the church was quickly buried in boiling black and brown sludge. We made good speed back towards City Hall, to the final Humvee, and hurried everyone in. The children coughed and gagged from the noxious air, and the man fainted from exhaustion. My unit boarded the Port Royal and prepared to leave. Crewmen and women scrambled on the upper deck, and the wounded were carried below to the infirmary. As we departed from the dock, we stood on the rear deck on the Port Royal and stared in awe. A massive cloud of smoke swirled around the entire city. Plymouth was completely engulfed in ash. A figure ran out of the dust cloud onto the dock. It was a woman. I had seen her somewhere before. Her clothes were tattered and she was ghostly pale, from the layer of soot which blanketed her entire body. She screamed to us, begged us to turn the ship around, to come back to her. Survivor on the dock. We need to launch a Zodiac. Mr. Brown screamed towards a deckhand. What the heck? What the heck is that? I heard someone whisper. That monstrous wail, like stone being ground together, deep and guttural and earthy. It was not an earthquake. It was a roar. We stood in silence as we steamed away from Montserrat at all haste. We could still hear the roar as it was bellowed across the ocean. Bright fireballs would light up the coastline, and occasionally, we would get a glimpse of the unnatural thing as it was silhouetted inside the volcanic storm. It was Mr. Green that broke the silence. Mr. Silver, your infrared camera, if you please. Already on it, Captain. Mr. Silver stared through the viewer of a high-tech camera with a lens that more resembled a telescope than something used for photographs. He snapped off dozens of images as the island faded into the horizon. Eventually, all that could be seen was the intense orange glow against the clouds. Most of the journey back to the port was silent. I wrote up a small brief to be put into a vaulted file in our headquarters in Puerto Rico. I'm sure that it'll quickly collect dust like the others. Before I did, I made sure I kept a copy of the front cover, as I do for each. Non-biological entity, NBE-71, I-Free class. Codename, Sharuv. Category 2. Location, 16 degrees, 43 north, 62 degrees, 11 west. Montserrat Exclusion Zone. Length, 27 meters. Height, 15 meters. Weight, 350 tons. Status, active.